Was geht's ab, my fellow Kriegsmariners? I don't even know if Kriegsmariners sounds right, but I'm gonna go with it because I am excited right now. And you all should be very excited right now because we finally get a ship that we've wanted for a very long time. It has significant historical impact as well, which is very cool. And that ship is the Admiral Graf Spee. Yes, the Graf Spee is finally in game. Now, before I get to the Graf Spee as it pertains to the game itself, I want to give a little bit of history about the Spee, because it's got a very neat and unique history. The Graf Spee was called by the Germans a Panzerschiff. That really is a fancy word for armored ship. Graf Spee was part of the Deutschland class of cruisers. The first one to come out, Deutschland, was the one that was actually called a Panzerschiff. Germany reclassified the final two, including the Spee, as heavy cruisers. The British didn't really know what to call these ships, so they came up with the clever term pocket battleships. And the reason for this is the fact that they had some serious firepower to them. In fact, all three ships were armed with 11-inch guns. So what the Germans were really looking to do, they wanted a ship that basically operated like a cruiser, but if other cruisers were able to catch up, they wouldn't stand a chance due to superior firepower. And I think that's exactly what they got with the Deutschland class. 11-inch guns on a cruiser. I know, right? That's pretty insane, pretty cool. So anyhow, what makes the Graf Spee so special? Well, let's set the tone back to the beginning of World War II. Bismarck and Tirpitz weren't even the big baddies at this point, or at least they weren't the ones that gained notoriety. It was the Graf Spee. The Graf Spee was down in the southern Atlantic, raiding merchant ships and just causing general havoc. Well, the British Admiralty did not like this. They said, this ain't gonna fly. We're losing steamers, we're losing other types of ships. Basically, the Spee was raiding, and it was doing a very, very good job at it. It was, in the beginning of the war, the terror of the seas. So, the British said, you know what, we're going to send a couple units down, we're going to go after this ship, and we're going to take care of it. And that's what they did. December 13th, 1939, one of these little task forces finally caught up and found the Spee. This little 3-unit detachment consisted of the Ajax, Exeter, and Achilles. Now these ships did not quite have the armament that the Graf Spee did, having 6 and 8-inch guns. However, there were 3 of them. What would follow when the ships caught up with the Spee finally became the first naval engagement of World War II and became known as the River Plate Battle, which interestingly enough is an anglicized version of Rio de Plata, which means Plate River in the native language, because the battle took place off of Argentina and Uruguay. So anyhow, you've got these 4 ships brawling with each other, and it's a pretty good battle. Both Ajax and Achilles suffered moderate damage. Spee itself suffered critical damage, though there wasn't much superficial damage. It actually turned out to be somewhat of a very good shot by the British. They were able to take out the fuel lines to the German ship. This was not good, and it forced the Spee to go into retreat. Hot on the tails were the British task force, or the remaining ships that didn't have to retreat due to their own excessive damage, and they followed the Spee. Spee limped onwards to Uruguay, where it took up port. Now, Uruguay at the time was a neutral country, so due to that, the Spee was only allowed to sit there for 72 hours. If it stayed any longer, that obviously would have been bad for Uruguay because that would have broken neutrality laws. So, Spee sat in Montevideo for a short time. Now during that time, the British were trying to spread disinformation and make the Spee, and particularly Captain Hans Langdorf, trying to make him think that there was a greater fleet out there that was ready to massacre the Spee as soon as it left port. Left with this, Langsdorff had no other options but to scuttle the ship, rather than let it fall into the hands of the British. That would have been a significant prize for the Royal Navy, and the Germans weren't about to let that happen. Langsdorff had been in contact with German high command throughout this period. So, the ship was scuttled, the British didn't get their ship, and the crew for the Spee spent the rest of the war down in Argentina. Now, while in Argentina, in somewhat of a poetic moment, Captain Hans Langdorff decided that this defeat was too much for him, In his room, he shot himself in full dress uniform on the ensign of the Spee. Kind of legendary right there. The naval wars in the Atlantic seemed a lot different than those in the Pacific. The German Kriegsmarine was very capable of showing admiration towards the enemy, and vice versa. One need only look to the tale of the HMS Glowworm for this, in which, again, Germany praised the actions of this valiant ship. So the war in the Atlantic was not necessarily a gentleman's sport, however it was carried out by gentlemen, so to speak. The Pacific, not so much. It was pretty bloody, and you did not want to be captured on that side of the hemisphere. Now, this is all very cool, right? Neat history about this ship, and probably one of the reasons why this ship has been so desired by many players of World of Warships. It's a famous ship with a famous history. It was involved in the first naval battle of World War II, and it was really, for lack of a better word, a badass ship. She's gorgeous too, obviously. German engineering was such that their ships just came out looking very streamlined and beautiful. So, that's all fine and dandy. The ship has a lot of history to it, but let me tell you about the Graf Spee in-game. For this, I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to take some pros and cons provided by the one and only little white mouse, and I'm going to expand on them. I'm going to let you know what you need to know about this illustrious ship. So, let's start with the pros for the Spee. First, you have a large hit pool for a Tier 6 cruiser, 39,000 HP. That means you have the ability to take a lot of damage, provided that you're angled correctly. Now keep that in mind, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. You also have a very powerful main battery, 6 283mm battleship-sized guns. Yes, those 11-inchers that I talked about earlier, those gigantic Panzerschiff guns. You also have good gun handling with those. They traverse very well for their size, they're quick. That's another very good pro about this ship. Even though you have battleship-sized guns, they don't handle like battleship-sized guns. On top of these guns, you also have torpedoes. And this is the cool thing, because these aren't your standard 6-kilometer Tier Pits torpedoes. These are 8-kilometer torpedoes. They've got decent speed and good range. This kind of gives you an extra punch. Not only that, they look very cool on the back of the ship, spreading out like angel's wings. That's at least what I'm going to say they look like. Now, the one other key thing that makes the Spee very, very cool is you have access to the repair party. You're one of the few Tier 6 ships that has that. The British line has them, but not until this ship came in did any other ships. And the British ship's only been in line so long, which is also cool because you can reenact all these neat battles that happen with the Kriegsmarine and the Royal Navy. Having access to the repair party is good because it means you can re-heal yourself a lot and keep you in the fight even longer, provided that you don't take too many Citadel hits. And I'll get to that part in a little bit also, because that falls into the cons, which I'm going to cover right now. You have poor armor values. Only 100mm plus 16mm of Citadel protection, max. I'm going to tell you right now, if you show your broadside, you're going to be a little student in Catholic school and the other ship is the nun. Your knuckles are going to get wrapped and it is going to hurt very, very badly. Do not show your broadside to other ships. You are still just a cruiser, despite your armament. You also have poor damage per minute. This is on account of your shells. Now, you might think that having 11-inch guns is good. Not completely so, and this is what makes the Spee an oddball, especially in its own tier. Your shells are almost too powerful for Tier 6. Against other cruisers, you're going to find that you're over-penetrating them a lot. That sucks. Now, your shells do have the capability to Citadel other battleships. That's cool. But where is the Spee at home? When you get up-tiered, you're going to find that even though you're able to Citadel other cruisers because your shells are more in line with their armor, you're going to get eaten alive because your armor is not up to the match of the other ships. You're going to get Citadeled a lot and you're going to get hammered on, especially when you start playing this ship because the Spee is the new ship and everyone likes killing the new ship, right? Now, back to the damage output. Because of the tendency to overpenetrate, and the fact that that happens so much, and the fact that you only have 6 shells, your damage output is not going to be up to the same level of other cruisers in your class or other battleships. Something to keep in mind. Not only that, your armament is ill-suited for handling destroyers. It takes a long time to switch your round. Going from AP to HE is a very long reload, because once again, these are battleship shells you're firing. So, if you're in a situation where a DD pops out of nowhere and you have AP loaded, go with AP, because you're not going to have time to switch. Now the bright side to this is, you have torpedoes, and those torpedoes are very effective at taking care of destroyers, or at least scaring the living hell out of them. You can chase them away that way. While you have battleship-sized guns, your AP power is only modest. It's not great. And on top of that, even though you've got a great turning radius for a cruiser, you're slow for a cruiser, only capable of pushing out 28.5 knots. That makes sense though, because you're carrying some serious firepower on your decks. So, overall, what do I think of the Admiral Graf Spee? Well, that's a good question. It took me a long time to figure her out. Partly one of the reasons I got in such a bad slump. I couldn't figure her out in the beginning. She is very much a pocket battleship. She's like a vagabond. She has no true home. She's not truly at home in Tier 6, and she's definitely not at home in the higher tiers either, where I tended to get placed a lot. I'm going to tell you right now, when you first play this ship, you are going to want to play her like a battleship. Do not do it. You are not a battleship. You do not have battleship armor. If you play her like a battleship, like I did the first times I played her, you are going to get sunk. And with that, I'm going to tell you right now, do not show your broadside. Do not show your broadside. Do not show your broadside. Alright, did that get into your mind? Because you need to keep that in your mind. Do not show your broadside. You will pay for it. You have very, very weak armor. And if you get hit on the side by large guns, you will feel it. And there is nothing that your repair party is going to be able to do about it. So, with that in mind, make sure you stay angled to other ships. You will take damage, but you're actually pretty good at bouncing damage, provided that you're properly angled, and you'll be able to use your repair party. And if you run with Superintendent like I do, and Premium, you'll get 5 heals, which is actually a lot. That keeps you in the game for a very long time, provided you play smartly. Now, I told you I struggled at first. I really didn't catch my stride until I decided to take that Tier 5 Concealment Captain skill. When I loaded this ship out, I concealed it the best that I could. I think I got it right down into the 11.5 kilometer range, which while not spectacular, it helped this ship out a lot. And it'll help you when you get up tiered. And that's something you're going to need. You want to use this ship as an Alpha Strike type of ship. And again, the reason for that is because of your guns. Now, neat little caveat about these guns. They're not quite as accurate as cruiser guns, but they are definitely more accurate than battleship guns, as far as German battleships and German cruisers. Now keep that in mind. They're squarely in the middle. So that's good. You've got decent accuracy. However, again, the overpins are an issue, so staying concealed and firing when you have a good shot is a must. Overall, I think this is a ship for a skilled player. I don't want to deter average players or beginners from this ship. Obviously, it has a lot of history to it. It's a very neat ship, but it has a very steep learning curve. It is not a high damage output ship. Obviously, if you watch a Super Unicum player play this ship, they're going to play Super Unicum level. They're going to get very, very good damage, but they can do that with every ship. For the average player, this is going to be a hard ship to put out lots of damage with. I only had a few 90,000 damage rounds, which for me, even for me, that's a little abnormal. Again, this ship is just in the middle of everything, but it's cool because of the way the ship is built, and I really think they got it right with putting this ship in Tier 6. So, do I recommend this ship? I can't not recommend it because of the history, and because of how it looks, and what it is. I mean, this is really, truly the first pocket battleship we have in game. I mean, battleship guns on a cruiser platform, what's not to like? So yes, emphatically, I recommend it for that reason and for the history of the Spee and everything else. Even though I'm recommending it, I'm going to warn you right now, if you don't consider yourself a great player, you're probably going to struggle with it at first. But when you finally get that 15-point captain on there, and when you finally get past that curve, you're going to do good with this ship. And you're going to be able to take advantage of all the very cool and neat features that it possesses. So, that being said, I'm just really happy we have this ship in game right now. She's a true beauty. If you've been waiting for this ship, go for her. If you're still on the fence right now, if you don't know if it's for you based upon what I've told you, if you're on the fence even the slightest and you don't care about the history of it, but you want to purchase a premium ship, I would say go for the Scharnhorst. The Scharnhorst will be a lot more in your comfort zone. But if you're not adverse to playing in cruisers, and you want to challenge yourself a little bit, or just want a very unique ship, by all means, I say go for the Graf Spee if you don't mind a challenge. Anyhow guys, thanks for watching this review. Hope you all are doing wonderful. We're headed in the holidays right now, so stay safe and take care, and I will catch you all later.